Welcome back. I guess today we're going to start cutting this thing apart, cutting out all this rust. If you recall from previous videos, I've got most of my patch panels done. I've got that piece that goes in there. I've got a piece to go in here. That's going to have to tuck underneath this sill angle there. So I've got to cut all this away before that can tuck underneath, and then it'll actually spot weld along the top. At least I hope it will, because I don't know if I can even get my spot welder in there. That's going to be a challenge. And then I've got the back piece that goes here. Now, the back piece only goes basically halfway up. Halfway up this body mount, maybe a little more than halfway. I might have to trim a little off. So I'm only doing it half at a time. So I'll clean it up, I'll weld this piece in, the body mount then will be attached to this, then I'll clean up behind it, and whatever I have to replace, I'll do it afterwards from the other side. So, and then I've also, on the last video, you saw the box beam. The box beam goes inside here. This is the box beam. This is the outer sill. So I've got to cut all of this away. But first, I've got a little bit of rust around this gusset. So I'm going to cut the gusset out. I'm going to put a patch in, and then put a new gusset in. Anyway, time to get busy. I decided I needed to sandblast some of this before I start cutting away. I've been sitting staring at this for about half an hour now, and it hasn't gotten any easier. So I guess I better get at her. The first thing I need to do is to weld this piece in. The reason for that is I've got the wooden jig that I made up to locate this, and if I go ahead and remove that, then my jig is no good. So before I can work on this area, I've got to weld that in. I've also made a few other decisions. Originally, I was going to just do a small section right here where it's pretty rotten. And I see there's a few more holes. Actually, let me grab a light. I hope this is going to show up. Now you can see here, there's a little bit of a hole there. There's a hole through up here, and a few right there. It's quite thin in this area. So I've decided that what I'm going to do is cut this just past this area here that's badly pitted. And from there back, it's perfect. There isn't even really any pitting. It's very solid. So if I cut it in there somewhere, and right to the front, and replace that section, it'll fit in my brake. I can't do the whole thing in the brake in one shot anyway, so either way I'd have to weld. So this way I make up that one piece. Before I do that, I'm going to make a wooden piece to drop in there so that I have to get this back in the same place. Now, there's no way that I can get my spot welder in to spot weld this into place. So what I'm doing is I'm punching a series of holes so that I can plug weld. Is ready for plug welding. Okay, so I had a real problem trying to get in here and get a decent plug weld while I was just holding it freehand. So I had to screw it in place. So now I'll just take those screws out. Now that I've got at least a few plug welds. So now that I got a few plug welds, I can go along and just pound it down in between. It would still be very nice to have a second set of hands so I could have somebody pushing it down while I plug weld. I think, well, I know some guys have a shoulder, a rod that they can press against their shoulder and use it use their body weight to try and hold it tight. Might have to rig up something like that. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. If at first you don't succeed, get a bigger hammer. I'm just not that steady with my other hand. Nope, that did not take. Oh well. I'm not real proud of the welding, but it's in there, it's attached. And I think it'll stay. So I've got this, I don't know what you call that, splash guard closure panel. I've got that finished off. I'm happy with it. I'll probably will get in on the back side of it and try to clean up some of those spot welds. But I think that all gets hidden by an interior panel. So anyway, with that done, I can move on to patching this area. The first thing I did was made myself a little plywood butt that fit that gusset perfectly. And I know, can't get it out. There. And then I went off and made myself a couple of duplicates, one left, one right. So there's the one for this side. And opposite to go on the other side. So now, I've also still got my wooden jig that I used to locate this. Now I can use it to locate the gusset. So I'm safe to cut that gusset out, put in my patch, and then put the new gusset in. I'm also going to have to flip this thing over and remove the the remains of the front section of the box beam so that I can get at the back side of this and clean it up and repair it properly. But that's pretty close. Okay, so I've cut away some of the box beam, and I've made my cutout for the front corner here. I've welded on a new flange. It was easier just to cut that right off and weld on a new flange than it was to try and separate the old steel from the old flange. It was a little bit rotted away anyway, so I'm better off. And so now I just have to trace this out and make my new piece and weld it in, and then I can start working my way back. Okay, one drawback with this spot welder is that it is heavy. But if I just think a little bit, I don't have to carry it around with me. Now I've got a pretty good gap across there and along the bottom too. Here I'm probably a little bit too tight, but anyway, so I've just clamped a little piece of copper on the backside, so I won't be blowing through it. I use my wood jig to locate my gusset and use the spot welder. Just put it on my stool here, and that enables me to easily do the spot welding without having to carry all the weight. Okay. I've made myself a little wooden template. That's just some of that 3/16 cheap plywood that I've got, and it's nice and tight, no real gaps, so now I can cut that piece out and I can weld a new one in, and I still have to trim that one down a little bit. I can do it before or after. position. Just do a little tack. I didn't even fire up my camera yesterday. Basically, I've just been going along and busting a lot of spot welds and trying to take some of that rusty metal off of there. And you can only show so much of that. But back here, I've got some more rusty metal that I'm going to have to cut out, but I want to get the other panel in first, and then I'll have to do a little surgery. Yeah, right in here. The gusset. I cut the gusset out. I'll have to make a new gusset, and some of the metal behind it's going to have to be replaced. The bottom of this B pillar is pretty rotten, so I'm going to have to do some surgery there. I don't know. I'm awfully tempted to just order new B pillars, but yeah, anyway, I'll see what I can do. Anyway, the next thing I do before I start welding in the other panels is I want to clean this up with the sandblaster. So towards that end, I got a tarp on the ground here that I want to hang. Last time I just draped it over, but I think the extent of the sandblasting I have to do, I want to get the tarp hung up properly. And so I'm trying to clean up a little bit. I need to do something with this engine. I've been tripping over it for the past month or two. And so I started pulling it apart to make it a little easier to manhandle. And but you know what? It doesn't look as bad as I expected inside. The inside the cylinders, there's no sign of rust at all. It looks pretty good. The cylinder head, well, if I can turn it around here. Oops. Okay, the cylinder head looks decent. A couple of stuck valves. They're stuck open. But that might be a viable alternative. The only drawback with this is the low starter mount. But I believe that they could probably just change that plate, the bell housing adapter plate, and maybe use this engine with the other gearbox. You can't. The bell housing and transmission are all one casting. So if I want the high starter mount, which is what Dolly originally had, then I can't use that gearbox. But I might be able to use that engine. Have to do a little research. Anyway, I'm going to continue pulling that apart and try and get it tucked away somewhere, and then get my tarp hung up and get that cleaned up and start some welding. We have a problem. According to the drawings online that I built this from, this first angle is supposed to be 5 degrees. I'll put the drawing up here for a second. But this first is supposed to be 5 degrees, and but You can see the gap in there, but the original was not 5 degrees. It's more like 2.5 degrees. Now the 5 degrees still isn't going to quite accommodate that, but there is still some flex in there. I could probably make it work at 5 degrees. But what to do now? I sure as heck don't want to start over and make new ones. It certainly wouldn't hurt to replace these flanges. The box beam itself, or not the box beam, but the A-pillar itself is all pretty solid. Maybe the flange is a little light, but it would have still been okay. On the B-pillar for sure, I have to build the whole bottom end of it regardless. So I'm thinking that maybe I just cut the flange off and I make a new piece and make it work. The way this goes on, it doesn't really touch. I don't know how well you can see that. I think outer sill, it doesn't touch the box beam at all, and the fenders go over the same way. So I don't see that would cause me any problems if I replace those flanges. What do you think? Sure, I'd like to get your opinion on the best way to tackle this. Take you around. This piece, I've got it flush. I've got it flush underneath here, so it's got to be trimmed off a little bit along the top. Same thing at the back. I've got the back piece in place. I got to go through and check the dimensions a little bit. I've got to check my overall length and verify that I've got this placed just right. And I have a dimension of 8 3/4. You can't even see the body mount in there, I don't think. Anyway, from the body mount to the bottom of the inner sill is 8 3/4 inches. So I got to verify that, and I got to verify my overall length. Once I've got that, then it's pretty much ready to weld. I was set up to do some sandblasting today, but it rained all day, and the way that affects me in here is that if the rain is beating against the garage door, then the water runs under the door. I got a big puddle over here, and I got a bit of a moisture on the other side, and it's been running across the floor and pooling under the car, and eventually makes its way over to a sump. But if I start sandblasting, I'm going to have a big mess. I won't be able to sweep it up and reuse it. It'll be damp. So maybe I can do my sandblasting tomorrow. But I want to get a lot of this. I want to sandblast this. I've cleaned it up a bit, but I want to be able to weld in there. Same thing in here. Yeah, basically everywhere I have to do welding. Eventually I got to sandblast the whole side. I have to think about how I'm going to protect the inside of the box beam. I tried the weld through zinc primer, and it didn't really like to spot weld for me, so I don't like that idea. I'm going to, I think, I'll do a bunch of sandblasting. I'll spray some, I'll put some masking tape over top of where I have to weld, and then spray epoxy primer. And I'll spray the inside of the box beam with epoxy primer. The flanges, Again, I'll just put some tape on the flanges so I don't get paint where I'm going to be welding, and that'll at least give it some protection. And then I think when I'm done, I'll put some strategic holes in it that I can spray the inside with oil or the paraffin undercoating, something that stays moist, and protect it that way. Anyway, that's where I'm at. That's the issues I'm running into. So let me know. What do you think? How should I proceed? I would appreciate the feedback. Anyway, we'll wrap this one up here. I had hoped to get a lot more done before putting this video out, but in light of the issues I'm running into, I thought I'd put it out there to you guys. So please like and subscribe and comment. Let me know what you think I should be doing. And see you on the next one.